first president's term since the 70s. We speak with April Tan of Call Financial. Fitch Ratings reaffirms the Philippines' BBB credit rating, citing a stable outlook. Maya plans to speed up its ecosystem growth after achieving net income profitability in the first quarter. We catch up with Maya Group President and Maya Bank co-founder Shailesh Baidwan. And make way for the return of DJ Zed to Manila. The Clarity fame partners up with AI startup Cloud Kitchen. We speak to them in just a few minutes. U.S. President Donald Trump is softening the blow of his auto tariffs as uncertainties persist among automakers. Trump signed an executive order yesterday, Tuesday, exempting car makers paying auto tariffs from being charged with other duties, such as those on metals and those imposed on Canadian and Mexican goods. The U.S. is charging a 25% import tax on vehicles assembled abroad since early April. A separate 25% duty on foreign auto parts will take effect on May 3. Trump's new order is retroactive, meaning automakers can be reimbursed for other tariffs that they already paid. The move comes as General Motors pulled its annual forecast despite strong quarterly sales, opting to delay its scheduled conference call until details of tariff changes were clear. Meanwhile, in an interview with ABC News marking his 100th day into his second term, Trump says China should find a way to reduce the impact of the steep tariffs he imposed on Chinese goods.
Your Treasury Secretary said we basically have an embargo on China.
Look, you're trying to say something's going to happen, Terry.
No, okay, well,
nothing's going to happen.
So 145% tariffs on China, and that is basically
That's
an embargo.
They deserve it.
It'll raise prices on everything from electronics to clothing to building houses.
You don't know that. You don't know whether or not China's going to eat it.
That's mathematics.
China probably will eat those tariffs. They were ripping us off.
Consumer confidence in the U.S. falls for the fifth straight month to 86 in April, levels not seen since the COVID-19 pandemic. The Conference Board says there is, quote unquote, pervasive pessimism about the future as consumers now worry about their personal situations. Meanwhile, consumer expectations fall to a 13-year low at 54.4, well below the 80-level mark that signifies a recession is ahead. Over in Brazil, foreign ministers from the BRICS group of developing nations failed to reach a joint statement on Trump's tariffs, but agree that trade protectionism poses a concern. The expanded BRICS group consists of Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Ethiopia, Indonesia, and Iran. And U.S. equities rise this Tuesday after Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick disclosed in a CNBC interview the U.S. has reached a trade deal with an unnamed country. The Dow is up by 0.75%, S&P 500 rises by over 0.5%, along with the NASDAQ, notching its biggest six-day run since March 2022. As for the NASDAQ, it climbed by over 0.5%, closing to erasing its losses since Liberation Day on April 2nd. As Trump 2.0 marks 100 days, the Dow and the S&P are headed for their worst start to a president's term since Richard Nixon's second in 1973. Taking a look at the benchmark 10-year Treasury yields, they've settled to 4.171%. And as for gold prices, they've fallen to $3,315.84 per troy ounce. U.S. futures pointing to modest declines when the markets start trading. Manila time tonight, Dow, S&P, and the NASDAQ all down by about 0.1% each, with the biggest decline there on the NASDAQ of about 0.6%. Let's take a look at the Asian markets and see how they're trading in the first hour this Wednesday. It's looking pretty mixed with the ASX 200 and Kospi down. Nikkei 225 in Japan up just a touch, about 0.1%. Investors await China's PMI data and Australia's inflation report, as well as the Bank of Japan's policy decision tomorrow, Thursday. Project Maya aims to hasten growth in its integrated ecosystem encompassing digital banking, payments, and lending. Maya Innovation's main shareholder, PLDT Incorporated, said last February Maya Group booked a profit in full year 2024 and that Maya Bank has been in the black starting September 2024. Well, with us now for more is Group President and Maya Bank co-founder Shailesh Baidwan. Good to have you with us, SP. Thank you so much for joining us. So what's made you profitable? What were the key drivers for that?
Sure, Cathy. As you know, we had a consumer wallet, Pay Maya, which then became Maya. And of course, we have a very large merchant acquiring business where we process payments for large enterprises, small micro enterprises. And then we launched Maya Bank, which we put at the heart of this ecosystem, which helped us to provide a full suite of services, both for the individual consumers on the Maya app and also for our micro, small enterprises on Maya Business Manager. So what we saw was with the introduction of Maya Bank, the Maya Bank grew rapidly thanks to the ecosystem it was leveraging. And in turn, the services from Maya Bank helped to accelerate the growth of our payments ecosystem. So it really became a virtuous loop where we've seen both of them reinforcing each other and really accelerating the growth of all our products across both the segments. And that really has helped us, along with great cost management and, of course, what we believe is good customer experience, thanks to a lot of the tech and products that we build in-house.
Well, for impatient investors, creating that end-to-end ecosystem might have taken a little bit of time. So what were the obstacles in trying to get there and piece it up end-to-end?
It is definitely. It was, we were not a bank, and that was not part of the original plan, so as to say. But when we realized that in the Philippines, the opportunity with more than half the adult population not having a basic bank account, micro enterprises, which generate 99% of the employment, so as to say, and less than 4% of the formal loans from banking going to them, we realized we really needed to be the primary financial service provider for individual consumers and for micro and small enterprises, which meant becoming a bank. Because we believe that we needed to own the core products and provide them end to end. It did take us some time, absolutely, like you rightly pointed out, but I would think that we are amongst the fastest bank to profitability, digital bank to profitability across the globe. In less than 3 years, we got to profitability, and we continue to see, after we introduced the digital bank, in 3 years, our revenues have grown over 5-fold. And like I said, that's systematic across all our products and services. So at this stage, I think the patience of the investors has been repaid with the growth that we continue to see.
But you've become profitable at a time economic growth is projected to slow because of what's going on overseas with the uncertainty over Trump's tariffs. How is that going to impact deposit and lending growth?
Sure. As you were pointing out earlier, lots of volatility. The first 100 days have been pretty interesting. But when we look at Philippines, which is where we operate, right, the GDP growth rate is still very much around the 6% range. The inflation is very much between the 2 to 4 at 3.2 odd percent. And when we look at the domestic economy, which is what we largely serve, over there the customers aren't over leveraged. Enterprises, small, micro, don't have access to formal credit. A lot of the customers who have opened a saving bank account with us, a lot of the micro enterprises whom we have given a working capital loan, we are the first time ever formal financial service provider of these services to them. So we're not talking of an over-leveraged consumer base or an over-leveraged enterprise base where concerns are there of potential changes. So overall, the macros are strong for the Philippines domestically, and I think we are just getting started in growing a young, developing market. So at this stage, versus when the inflation were running slightly higher to 6, 8, 9 months back, I think now we believe that the environment is reasonably stable. So we are quite comfortable with continuing with hyper growth over the coming quarters and months.
You're comfortable about launching any new product offerings then?
We are constantly adding to our suite of products and services. So for the micro and small enterprises, our what we call the Maya Business Manager. Now, earlier it used to process payments. Now that has the business deposit, where you can put the surplus cash. You can do disbursements, payments to your suppliers. You also have the ability to short-term working capital from us, as all in that one portal. So we're constantly adding new services and products and rolling that out. On the consumer side of the house, similarly, of course, we've got investment services. You can buy individual stocks on PSE. You can also buy mutual funds. And we also are continuing to add our lending products. So our latest is credit card. So our Maya Black credit card is literally going live even as we speak right now, you and I. So we will be continuously adding products and services because, like I said, the market is so underserved that the opportunity is just very, very large.
But what's the lure of a credit card for, say, a Gen Z customer
Right.
who probably is demanding the clarity and the structure of a debit card?
That's really interesting. So if we look at in the Philippines, the penetration of a credit card in the adult population is around 8%. That's it. And that's a proxy for people having access to credit from financial services. So that is extremely low. It's lower than the Southeast Asian peers, and of course, it's far off from the global averages. On the other side, when we look at the Google search data, guess the single most searched financial service product in the Philippines? Credit card. It is seen as a product that is convenient, that is aspirational. So from across all the segments, especially Gen Y, Gen Zs, and millennials. So we are very excited to introduce a product we think which will be very relevant. But it will come with all the controls, Cathy, that these people are looking for.
Such
so within
as?
the app, you'll be able to control. If I give you a credit limit of 10,000, you can reduce that to 1,000 if you want. If you don't want the card to be used overseas, you can zeroize that. If for online purchase, so the controls that you will have as a consumer are going to be at a different level, while at the same time, a lot of them, like I said, don't have a credit card. So our AI engines will help first time ever credit card or create credit card holders, first time ever credit card holders. So we're giving you control, which is what you want, which is a lot of what the Gen Y, Gen Z millennials want to do. You can see your statement instantly. You can see all your transactions instantly. You can pay the balances off instantly. Everything's under your control. So if your concern is around getting leveraged or indebted, control is in your hands. You can instantly pay your bills, settle it, run it the way you want.
Any IPO fundraising activities in the offing?
At this stage, the focus is on growth. Like I said, we've grown fivefold in the last 3 years. This year, for the first quarter, deposits, loans, payments, all the businesses are doubling versus first quarter last year. So our focus really is on growth. We have enough capital to continue to fuel our growth aspirations, continue to add to our capabilities on AI, fraud, technology, and all the rest. So at this stage, no hurry to get to an IPO.
We have about 30 seconds. I'm just wondering, before you go, how do you pay up on any given day? I mean, how has it changed? Like, what is part cash and what is part credit card or debit card and Maya app?
For me?
Being the boss of Maya, yeah.
That's a great question. It just depends on what I'm transacting. If I'm transacting a small transaction at a small merchant, it tends to be QR, right? If I'm online, I use my virtual Maya card, right? Because that's safe, it's a virtual card. If I'm going and doing a larger transaction, I tend to use my Landers credit card at this stage. So it really depends on where I'm shopping, what I'm doing, where I'm purchasing, online, offline, because the solutions are designed to cater for all of those, right? If it's a large transaction, I want to earn the points, cash back, I'll use my credit card. Online, I want safety, security to make sure my other payment instruments aren't impacted, so I use my virtual card.
So don't leave home without any of that, your phone or your
Don't leave home
traditional
without
wallet.
Maya.
All right, well, thank you so much, SP.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Pleasure.
That was Shailesh Baidwan of Maya. And you're watching Money Talks. Coming right up, ADB is saying Asian countries should find new trade partners and focus on local demand amid the tariff uncertainties. And Fitch Ratings affirms the country's BBB investment grade. Keep it here on One News. Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. The Asian Development Bank says Asian countries should find new trade partners and focus on local demand to withstand global tensions. In an interview with Bloomberg TV, ADB President Masato Kanda said Asia's export-driven economies remain strong but vulnerable to tariffs and market shocks. He warned that U.S. tariffs, not just in China, but also in nations like Vietnam and Thailand, are hurting regional exporters. Kanda also pointed to market volatility and stronger Asian currencies as challenges for competitiveness. With this, he urged countries to boost resilience by diversifying industries, strengthening policies, and separating trade issues from currency talks. Fitch Ratings has affirmed the Philippines' BBB investment grade with a stable outlook, citing strong growth and minimal exposure to global trade tensions. Fitch says the Philippine economy is driven by infrastructure investments, remittances, and services exports. It expects the economy to grow 5.6% this year, slightly below the government's 6 to 8% target. Still, Fitch sees over 6% growth in the medium term. It also noted the country's success in taming inflation and maintaining a credible monetary policy. BBB rating indicates low default risk and reflects the economy's enough capacity to pay debt. For its part, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and government welcome Fitch's reaffirmation, saying it signals confidence and low credit risk. Philippine National Bank's net income grew by 15% to over 6 billion pesos in the first quarter. In a disclosure, the Lucio Tan-led lender says strong loan and treasury yields plus trading gains boosted its core income to over 14 billion pesos, which is 10% higher than last year. Its net interest income rose to nearly 13 billion pesos as loans and investments expanded. Meanwhile, PNB saw lower provisions for bad loans and says it expects even stronger earnings ahead. Moody's recently upgraded the bank's rating, citing solid profits and stable financials. For more business stories, check out Business World and the Philippine Star online. And we zero in on today in the financial index that tracks the performance of the Philippine banks listed at the Philippine Stock Exchange. Let's take a look at the technical chart. The index appears to be on the verge of an upside breakout, says Ron Acoba of Trading Edge, and it's likely heading for a new all-time high. And while the index continues to face resistance at the 2450 level, adds Acoba, its steady formation of higher lows, coupled with recent price consolidation, suggests mounting bullish momentum. A successful breakout above 2450 would signal renewed investor interest and capital flow into the local banking sector. Let's take a quick check on the Philippine markets. PSCI opens Wednesday higher by nearly half of 1% at the get-go at 6,280. The stock market posted slight gains yesterday, Tuesday, closing higher by less than 0.1%. The Philippine peso opens today stronger at 56,005 to the dollar, to be exact. Peso closed slightly stronger again at 56,145 against the greenback on Tuesday's trading. Well, with us now for more is April Lee Tan, Call Financial Chief Equity Strategist. Good to see you again, April. Welcome back to the program.
Hi, thank you for having me, Kathy.
So how are the bank earnings looking so far? We've had BDO, PNB earnings over the past 48 hours, and Metrobank in a short while.
Okay, I mean, they look okay. We've had some growth and the demand for loans continue to go up. So, I mean, that's good. And NPLs are also going down. So far, so good for the banks.
The last time we talked, it was really dividend plays that you recommended for investors. How have your picks done so far in the first quarter? Did all of them live up to the gains that you had forecast amid the uncertainty that we're facing with Trump policies?
Well, I think they've done quite well. Yeah, because if you think about it, they're all quite relatively resilient because we have more of a defensive tilt. So they've done quite well, and since they give out cash dividends, I mean, investors have generally, stuck with them. I think one of the stocks that did not perform well is Security Bank, but I think it was because of the news that Moody's downgraded the outlook. But we're still saying that we're maintaining our positive outlook on Security Bank because, of course, valuations are so cheap. And, I mean, if you look at the reason why the capitalization went down, which is the reason why the outlook was downgraded, it was because of the faster growth of its asset base, which allowed its P&L to go up. And for this year, we're projecting a 14% increase in the P&L.
Yeah, but could it be a cause for concern for the whole financial industry with net interest margins possibly being under pressure because rates are on the way down?
Well, definitely margin pressure is one of the issues. But, I mean, on the positive side, what we're hoping for is that demand for loans would continue to pick up because, as you've discussed earlier, for example, ADB was still saying that they're still projecting the economy to grow by, 5 to 6% this year. So with that, we'll still see strong demand for loans. So we feel that, the continuous growth in lending, plus, of course, remember we had triple R cuts from the BSP. So those two factors will help partially offset, some declines in the net interest margins.
Let's talk about the negotiations about to happen. Secretaries Chris Aldeguer and Frederick Go in Washington, D.C. to negotiate with the U.S. Trade Representative. How will the markets react to whatever happens there?
It's definitely positive, but well, if you think about it, even at the worst case scenario where we will get hit with the reciprocal tariff, in the grand scheme of things, exports account for only a small share of GDP for us. But of course, I think it's worth fighting for every small percentage point that we can. But we're just saying that even at the worst case scenario, we are less vulnerable compared to our neighbors. And in fact, if the reciprocal tariffs are implemented, because right now, of course, we know that we're at a pause. We feel that we're at an advantage. We're not at the disadvantage because we have the second lowest, reciprocal tariff relative to other Asian neighbors.
We got about a minute to go. Elections here happening in 12 days. What impact is this having on consumer spend or sentiment, if any?
Yeah, so election, is something that we talked about earlier this year to have a positive impact on consumer spending. And it seems like, from anecdotal evidence that it is having a positive impact because based on our discussions with listed companies, they seem to be quite optimistic about the first quarter because, election spending coupled with the slowing inflation rise or they're leading to more robust consumer spending.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, April Tan of Call Financial. Coming up after the break, Zed is returning to Manila for And Friends Festival Manila. Stay with us on Money Talks on One News. Welcome Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Music and pop culture come together. Cloud Kitchen, a consumer AI startup with operations in Los Angeles and Manila, announced a $4.45 million seed funding round last October 2024. Now, that funding has since gone on to adding value for fans, creators, game developers, and music enthusiasts. Well, joining us now is marketing lead Edward Chiang and Adriel Cheong, the co-founder and COO of LA-based startup Cloud Kitchen, which builds AI tools for content creators. It is also the organizer of and friends, one of the largest music and pop culture festivals here in Manila. So good to see you both, Adriel and Edward. Welcome back to Manila. As you've been here many times before and you do business here, pretty interested to know about the venture capital market. You've been so exposed even pre-Trump. Adriel, what's it like right now with all the uncertainty that's going on with venture capitalists not knowing what next and tech maybe even paring down on CapEx? What's it like?
Yeah, so I used to head investments at an early stage venture capital firm based out of Singapore, but we invested across Southeast Asia and we also had several investments in the US. And that was, I started in venture capital in the mid-2022 when the market was already going down. So I thought, it couldn't get any worse, right? But I think, with the uncertainty around the macroeconomy, especially in the last couple months, several of my friends have actually said that things have gotten even worse. I do think there's still some bright spots. Consumer spending continues to grow in Southeast Asia. I think this year's election year in the Philippines, so consumer
In 12
spending
days.
is expected to go even further. And we see that as well in and friends on the festival ticket sales, which have done incredibly well for us. But zooming out, I think, whether in the US or Singapore, we see a lot of interest in AI investments. And we felt that firsthand at Cloud Kitchen last year as we were raising capital across our pre-seed and seed round. And we're very fortunate to have a great roster of, investors like Andreessen Horowitz, Sequoia Southeast Asia, Hustle Fund, and several others as well.
And that's where venture capitalism meets pop music and culture. So Edward, tell us about that first product that you had that was such a big hit, Backseat AI.
So Backseat AI is a creator-driven League of Legends trainer. So we used Tyler 1 as the creator at that time, and we got over 45,000 signups. And it was a pretty successful thing users really liked it.
And that was before or after the seed funding of $4.45 million.
So Backseat actually launched before the seed round. It was built out of here, and it was launched out of Philippines. And now the team is sort of split between the Philippines and LA, where we work with some of the largest content creators across music, gaming, lifestyle. But yeah, we are very fortunate to have found a strong launch pad out here in Manila, even before we raised any capital from the US.
And you've decided to bring DJ Zed into your next project. We won out of LA. You picked the Philippines. How come?
Well, our CEO, Justin Banusing, is from the Philippines. So he wanted to bring EDM and rave culture and revive that in the Philippines. So we successfully did that with Horizon 1 and Horizon Halloween last year, where we had Jonas Blue. And this year we're bringing in the big guns with Zed for day 1 and Illenium for day 2.
Okay, so I'm starting to think now, what goes next? This is quite innovative. You've got EDM, electronic dance music, meeting venture capitalism. What could be the other projects down the line with your seed funding? Because that just came through in October 2024, probably not yet deployed. Do you have plans in the pipeline?
Yeah, no, I think at the heart of it, Cloud Kitchen is about building innovative experiences that transform fan experiences while helping content creators scale their outreach and engagement, right? We've done that successfully with Backseat AI. We are planning a new product called Last Drop that will help even more creators, not just gaming ones, but those in the music, lifestyle space, reach more of their fans, get their fans back, engage their fans, and at the end of the day, make fans feel like they matter to their creators. So that's something exciting. On the festival side, I think we'll look and see what happens in Manila, and my sense is that there's a lot of interest for us to do even more in Manila and around the region. So yeah, those are some of the exciting things.
Then around the region, so we're talking Southeast Asia because you wanted to be the premier destination of EDM, bringing it here in the Philippines. What makes you say that?
So essentially, we want to be the destination festival for EDM in Philippines and for Manila. And we're able to do that with the festival because like we're bringing in Bokkash from Thailand, we have Ray Ray from Taiwan, Hua Prox from Vietnam, Foxella from Singapore. So it's not just us bringing in big acts from the West, but it's also us platforming Asian EDM from across the region. And we also are bringing our Asian American brothers from the US, like Kwang, Muse, and we also have Junghyun from Korea and Two Spade from Korea, Oak and KDH from Japan.
That's a lot, and I'm thinking tourist arrivals for the Philippines. But thank you so much, and I know that the event's happening on 30 and
30, 31
31st
May.
of
Yeah.
May. Thank you,
Yeah.
and have fun here in the Philippines.
Thank you.
That's Adriel Young and Edward Cheong of Cloud Kitchen joining us. And that is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. here on One News. Have a great day ahead.